Okay. My name is Shirley, and I am the founder of Menopause Chicks, and it is my pleasure to welcome you here tonight. This is our keynote event for September is Menopause Awareness Month. And you may have heard me say it before, I don't believe that awareness is the challenge at all, but I do believe that ensuring that women have access to quality women's health information is our challenge. And so we are dedicating not only the month of September, but the next 6 weeks to try to close that gap and to ensure that you do have access to some of the most world-renowned experts in women's midlife health, in perimenopause, menopause, and beyond. And tonight, we have a very, very special guest who I'll be introducing in a minute, who is a mind-body expert and who's going to be speaking to us on the topics of sleep, stress, and sex. So I can't wait to get to that. There's a couple things, housekeeping, that I do want to share. So if you haven't received it already, there is an email in your inbox that outlines all of the bonuses that you received with your ticket tonight. So including a replay, which we will send tomorrow, including an exclusive Q&A with Dr. Pawa tonight. There is an e-copy of my book, MOKITA, How to Navigate Perimenopause with Confidence and Ease. And Dr. Pawa is also a co-author of MOKITA. There is a $10 gift card for online shopping at purepharmacy.com, and you can use that for anything. The vaginal moisturizer, which you may have heard me mention a few times, you can use it for FerroPro Iron, and there's also an extra $5 off of FerroPro. You might be interested in getting your magnesium with that gift card. So we want to make sure that you have an exclusive shopping opportunity. And what else did I want to tell you? Yes, there's a number of events that are coming up this month. So I'm not going to go through them all right now, but I do want you hopefully to come back and join us on Monday, September 14th. We are going to be sitting down with Dr. Jennifer Beaker, who is a dermatologist. The event is free. It's sponsored by Vichy Canada. And for those of you that attend, Vichy has a free gift for everyone, as well as a special offer. So you can find out all of that information at mybestmidlife.ca. And just make sure that we have everyone through. Okay, so let's get started. I am not one for formal introductions because tonight's guest is very, very dear to my heart. She originally, I think yesterday I called you a rock star. You have rock star status in this world, and that is because I knew of your work long before I met you. I remember the very first day that I started my research on perimenopause, and I went to one of your information evenings at the West Coast Women's Clinic, and you have left a lasting impression on me ever since. And when Dr. Pawa agreed to be a co-author of MOKITA, I knew that I could do this. And then shortly after that, 12 other women's health professionals said yes as well. And that's how that book came to be. But what we are celebrating tonight is Dr. Pawa's new book, which is called The Mind-Body Cure. It's not out yet. It hits the bookstores, chapters in particular, on September 15th. It's The Mind-Body Cure, How to Heal Your Pain, Anxiety, and Fatigue by Controlling Chronic Stress. Dr. Pawa is a pharmacist, a physician, a women's midlife and hormone health expert. She's the co-founder of the West Coast Women's Clinic in Vancouver. She's a Harvard-trained mind-body expert. And she's an author a couple of times. So, I mean, how amazing is that? And I think it's really amazing that she has taken time out of her busy schedule, her busy book launch schedule, to spend the evening with menopause chicks. So without further ado, I would like to welcome my friend and the esteemed Dr. Bal Pawa. And you have to turn your mute button off. There you go.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Shirley. Those were very kind words, and I hope I can meet some of your expectations for the evening, because there's a lot to cover here tonight. I just want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if there's any gentlemen on the call, that when I started the West Coast Women's Clinic 20 years ago, I thought that it was going to be a little bit of mind-body medicine, but integrative medicine, but mostly hormones, estrogen and progesterone and hot flashes. At about 6 months into opening the clinic, we called it the West Coast Menopause Clinic, and we changed our name to West Coast Clinic for Hormone Health, because very shortly after dealing with all these patients, my co-founder and I realized that stress hormones play a huge role in the female reproductive hormones as well. So how could we just stick to menopause? We had to consider the whole symphony of hormones. And so while my research is a lot about the stress hormone pathways, my training through the North American Menopause Society and the certification and board certification I received is all about female reproductive system and the ovaries. So I'm going to show you how those two systems that I've got training in overlap, and we need to have conversations between the stress pathways and the estrogen, progesterone, or sex hormone pathways. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into the PowerPoint, and that will just give you guys a little bit of context and some information about hormones and stress. And then I invite you all to ask questions. That's what it's about, ladies. Let's jump in and have that conversation, crack open the conversation, as Shirley would say, and talk about the things that's whatever's on your mind. It's an open conversation after that. So I'm just going to start making sure that you can all see this.
Yep.
So sleep, sex, and hormones. Who would have thought there was a common denominator here? Well, I'm here to tell you that sleep and sex are both influenced by our stress hormones. And I'm going to show you how to connect the dots in a minute. And many women who've come to the clinic, insomnia would probably be way up there. And along with insomnia, of course, goes fatigue. And then many women come in because they have a low libido. I don't know what's wrong with me, doctor. I have no desire. I love my husband, but I don't feel like having sex with him. So that's a very common complaint. And they just don't connect that the hormones for sex and for sleep are actually related to your stress hormones as well. So first of all, let's talk about women. I think women all over, and I've got women here on this call, you said from New Zealand and New Jersey, and we've got local women, but women wherever you are, I know that most of you are doing double duty. With the COVID crisis especially, women are cooking more, doing more laundry, doing homeschooling, and trying to work from home. So there's a lot of information that's being overloaded on women. We've got a tremendous amount of technology, which I'm very grateful for, because here we are communicating with all of you because of technology. But sometimes technology can take its toll on our nervous system. And women also are faced with a lot of uncertainty right now with COVID crisis. Are they going to have a job? Are they going to be financially secure? And of course, all-time high in relationship issues. The number of divorces, the number of relationship counselors. If you look at the toll the last few months have taken, that's also playing into our stress pathways. and of course, deadlines and pressure to perform. So all of those things that you wouldn't think about would all accumulate to put pressure on what we call our hypothalamus or pituitary or stress pathways. Now, I don't know if you can see the whole slide. I just wanted to show this because that was the big epiphany when the lights came on for us that, hey, we can't just look at menopause. We can't just look at PMS or postpartum depression or just, you know, the PMDD, which is a terrible mood disorder that some women get before their periods. We have to look at the whole symphony of hormones. And the conductor of this symphony is found in our brain. It's called the autonomic nervous system. And I know you were at my TED Talk, Shirley, and I did a TED Talk on the autonomic nervous system because a lot of us don't realize, one, that we have an autonomic nervous system, two, that most of us have this system revved up and we got the gas pedal on all the time. In other words, we're stressed. We've got cortisol and adrenaline in our bodies that's surging all the time. And three, how do we turn that nervous system off? Because if we can learn how to control our nervous system, we can also regulate the hormones of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and even insulin. So I'm going to show you how all of those hormones are related. Keep clicking on this. Now, what happens is when you get information overload or you get a lot of stress. So what is stress? Stress for everybody might be different. I might be stressed about one thing, somebody else is stressed about another, but all stress travels on what we call the fight-flight pathway. So our brain sends a signal to our adrenal glands, which are located on top of the kidney, says, uh-oh, there's danger, got to do something. And within seconds, cortisol and adrenaline come rushing out. So stress causes cortisol production. Now, the problem is we weren't supposed to have cortisol, adrenaline on all the time. We were supposed to use that to fight or flight, get out of the way of a saber-toothed tiger. Well, now we don't have saber-toothed tigers chasing us, but we have internal tigers that are inside our mind that we can't run away from. Uh-oh, I don't like this, and this one said that to me, and I've got a fear of loneliness or rejection, and all those tigers are turning on the same pathway of stress as if it was a tiger chasing you. So what I'm seeing is a pervasive amount of cortisol, and in our clinic, we've been really blessed, but we can actually measure your cortisol levels. Not all labs can do that. We send urine away to the States and we can check how much cortisol you're producing. Because once we realize that cortisol production is high and the stress hormones are on, then we started to see a pattern. The women who had very high levels of cortisol had very depleted levels of their sex hormones. So when a woman comes in and she's saying, I'm still menstruating, but 2 weeks before my cycle, my moods are terrible, my breasts hurt, I crave carbs, and I'm a super bee to live with. And even the husband and the kids are writing down on the calendar when it's mom's time of the month. So when you get that, it's because you end up with a progesterone deficiency. Now, why does that happen? And I went on a big search to find out what's the relationship between cortisol production and estrogen and progesterone function. Why are they going down? And this is a huge thing that we need to let women know. When your stress levels are really high, cortisol is a big bully on the block. It starts to say, well, who cares about her sex hormones? Let's siphon off her progesterone, siphon off her estrogen, siphon off her testosterone, and make cortisol. Because cortisol is what we call a primary hormone. You can't live without it. You need to have it. Every morning you have a high level of cortisol. Every night you have a low level, but we're just not supposed to have high levels all the time. So when your body or your brain is sending a signal to your adrenals, I got stress, I got stress, I got stress, That's a pretty big signal. The brain says, well, she's got to survive. She can survive without her sex hormones. We've known of lots of women who've had their ovaries removed and they survive. But if you take out someone's adrenal gland, they're not going to live. So the brain says, well, I don't have enough, I've got too many signals of stress. The adrenal gland can't keep up with the demand. So it starts pulling in progesterone. And this is what causes some of the mood changes, the anxiety. Women say they're irritable, they can't control themselves. They notice that it affects their sleep, and their quality of sleep is determined by progesterone. Progesterone helps you get into a nice, deep REM sleep. So cortisol is involved with sleep pathways as well. So now you can see where the cortisol excessively has now depleted progesterone. Progesterone causes changes in mood, maybe changes in your cycle, hot flashes, and that causes even more stress. So the cortisol production gets ramped up again, and eventually the adrenal gland starts to burn out. Uh-oh, I can't keep up. And then women are told, oh, you're depressed. You have fibromyalgia. Your muscles ache, so you need to go on a painkiller or a sleeping pill. And what we've noticed is that women come in with anti-inflammatory sleeping pills and often antidepressants. And sometimes we need to go back and fix what's broken rather than throwing a pill at every ill. And so what we've been doing is working on what is broken. Let's work on the stress pathway. And sometimes we do replace the progesterone in the last 2 weeks of a menstruating woman's cycle. We might give progesterone cream, or we might give oral progesterone. And if it's a menopausal woman and she's very depleted, I will show you how menopausal women adapt when their adrenals have burned out. Now, as you can see, it's a real tug of war with all these hormones in your body. And this is just a few hormones. I don't have a slide big enough to put all the hormones in there. But I can tell you with my research that cortisol is by far the biggest bully on the block. The cortisol wins the tug of war. And it impacts the way your thyroid works. It impacts your insulin pathways. So it mobilizes glucose, impacts your progesterone, which I just showed you how, and even impacts your DHEA. Your DHEA is a hormone that's also produced by the adrenals, and it's your longevity hormone. This is your youth hormone. So you want DHEA as you get older, but often women hit menopause and their DHEA levels are very low. Now, what does DHEA do? It gives you memory, it gives you energy, it helps your muscles to build. And cortisol also impacts your brain chemistry. So your neurotransmitters such as dopamine and serotonin also impacted by cortisol. So cortisol has such a profound effect on almost all your body systems. And that is why I was compelled to write a book, because after seeing patient after patient after patient presenting with different symptoms, when I started fixing their cortisol pathways, I saw women's hormones start to balance better. I saw their progesterone levels. I saw their periods start to improve. My menopausal women had an easier time when they balanced their cortisol levels. So I just feel that most medical schools, and my training is here in Canada, but I'm sure in Australia and Britain, we have a very similar curriculum. And we divide up our study and compartmentalize. We got an hour's lecture, by the way. I told Shirley that. We got an hour's lecture on menopause. And then if you have symptoms of gut, then we, studied the gut. Or if you have symptoms of skin problems because of cortisol, then we just studied the skin. But there was no way that we were told to pull it all together and go to the root cause and fix what's broken. And this is what I'm trying to educate people, especially women, that if you learn how to control your cortisol pathways through regulating your nervous system, you will buy the best life insurance, because you can take charge of that. That's something that's portable, it's affordable, it's universal. Anybody can do this. So I'm going to show you those things at the end. Um, Now, we know that when you want to optimize your hormones, there's a number of things that we want you to do. But today, we don't have a lot of time to go into all of it. And I just want to show you how rest and sleep impact your hormones. So let's talk about rest. Now, rest, I mean unplugging from your iPhone, your iPad, technology, because every time you hear dings, and you might hear some in this presentation, every time you hear a ding, many of you may not know that you get a little rise in cortisol and adrenaline. Every time you have to jump and look at something, you're getting a ding. So when you get those dings, you're actually turning on your stress pathways. And I want you to just try to unplug and get some rest away from technology. Go in nature, just be quiet, go within, and that's rest. Now, sleep is very different. A lot of people come to me and say, I've got sleep deprivation or I have insomnia. And then I take that opportunity to teach them that sleep deprivation is different than insomnia. Sleep deprivation would be a mother, a single mother who's working two jobs and doing laundry and cooking and finishes one shift, comes home, cooks dinner, gets the kids bathed, and then she just doesn't have time because she has to do laundry, and she only sleeps for 1 or 2 hours because she simply doesn't have the time because she needs to get up and go to her next job. So that would be an example of sleep deprivation. Insomnia is when you have the opportunity to sleep, you're lying in bed and you can't sleep. Your mind is racing, your heart is racing, you're thinking 100 different things, but you can't sleep. You've got a beautiful, comfortable bed, you bought your memory foam, and you pillow. So you can have acute insomnia, chronic insomnia. So we really have to take a good history of what your sleep problems are. But all I can tell you is that if you have good quality of sleep and good quantity of sleep, you will balance your hormones better. Your cortisols are supposed to be low at night, and that's when your melatonin is working. Your growth hormone is a repair hormone. And that repair hormone repairs your body, but also your immune system. So it's a great downtime to improve your immune system. That's why sleep deprivation and insomnia are linked to poor immune status. And everyone's worried about their immunity right now because of COVID. Well, a really good way to improve your immune system is to get a good quality and good quantity of sleep. So you want to have about 6 to 8 hours of consecutive sleep. Sleep is like you know how you wash clothes in the washer and it has to go through all those different cycles? Often women will buy things off the counter for sleep, or they'll take Zopiclone. That is not giving you a good full cycle. It's almost like taking the laundry out and it wasn't fully cleaned, because it has to go through REM, non-REM, and various cycles of slow and deep brainwave patterns to get a good quality sleep. So often we try to tell you about the quality of sleep. And so sleep and rest are really important because men make more testosterone when they sleep. And women, when you have downtime, your cortisol levels are lower at night and you're not wide awake, you're actually building up your estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. So those are all important when it comes to sex. Now, there's a link here between stress and a lack of sleep, because when you have a lot of stress, it lowers your libido as well. So sex drive. Now, a lot of women want to come in and say, give me a magic pill. My husband has Viagra. Now what do I do? And unfortunately, the pill that they have for women, it's a little pink pill. The men have Viagra, and there's a pink pill. But that pink pill is not great. It has some side effects. It's a brand name called Addy, but it takes 3 months to work. And ladies, you cannot drink alcohol with it. So it's got its problems. It's an antidepressant, but it takes 3 months to work. And so that's not a great pill for women. Some women who have what we call hypoactive sexual desire disorder, they actually have a problem that they don't have enough testosterone. For those women, we'll do some testing and see if their testosterone levels are low. And if they are, in fact, then we will give them testosterone on prescription. That is on prescription. But before I go to the prescription, I take a really good history and I say, well, what's going on? And most of you would be surprised. If I could put a camera inside a woman's head, it would look like the cockpit of a 747. It's got tons of buttons, and the garbage has to be taken out. The house has to be clean. There has to be money in the bank. There's got to be all these check things before a woman can relax and have sex. It's because the left brain is where the cortisol, adrenaline, survival brain, we call it. That's where all the analyzing is happening in the left brain. So when women are always making this to-do list, I've had women tell me that they're having sex and all they have to do is, well, tomorrow morning I have to pick up the dry cleaning, I have to drop the kids out, I have to do this. They can't get out of their head. So when they're thinking to-do list or what to do next, they're actually turning on cortisol pathway because your brain thinks you have to do something. It's a call to action. So then I teach women, how do you get out of the left brain and go into your right brain? Libido for women is born in the right brain. Now, men are different. Men have an on and off switch. They don't have a 747 cockpit, okay? So they can take a Viagra, get the blood flowing down to their penis, and they can have sex. For women, a lot of our desire is born in the brain. It's in the brain. And so, yes, I can give you testosterone, but testosterone is not going to be the answer if you're still in your head all the time. So it's a real practice to teach women getting out of their left brain, going to their right brain, and cultivating desire. So that's one of the things that we have to do, is get them out of the stress mode and into the relaxation mode. And we can do that through mindfulness, relaxation, and just awareness of it. And there are some exercises that we teach them as well. Now, when it comes to stress for men, they respond a little differently. They want to have more sex when they're stressed. Some men do have the same response as women. They want to check out. But a lot of men find that it relieves stress when they have sex. So for some men, they're wired differently than women, that's for sure. Now, when you want to have healthy hormones, I teach women that yes, we can replace your hormones if they're deficient, if you're a good candidate and we've looked at you and done a good risk assessment. But ultimately, you have to look at the hormone pathways and see what is missing, what is deficient, and what is in excess. So teaching women how to connect the dots. So the estrogen and progesterone, testosterone, they're affected by your other hormones such as cortisol, thyroid. Even thyroid affects female hormones, for example. So if a woman has a malfunctioning thyroid, she might get really heavy periods or very light periods. So you can see all these hormones impact each other. The hormone symphony again. It's really important when we're talking about hormones, though. Hormones are pretty powerful, ladies. I mean, if any of you had teenagers, remember when they were in puberty? That's how powerful hormones are. They can really change your voice, they can change your mindset, they can make you rebellious, they can do a lot of things. So hormones are you have to be very careful with them. And so getting the hormones tested properly is absolutely key. And then what Shirley's been doing, and I applaud her for this, is giving information to women. She has been a great conduit to take info from people who are passionate and have got the extra training, and she brings that information to the masses. So educating yourself and getting good, credible information so that you make better informed decisions for your health. Ladies, you have to advocate for yourself because our medical system, and I'm in it, and I was a patient of the system, and I'll tell you about my story afterwards. But this system is designed for intervention. So pills, surgery, we're designed to give a pill for every ill because that's the way doctors are reimbursed from the government. Is one symptom, okay, you can bill for that. In the States, it's a little bit different, but the point is it's an intervention model across the board. I just feel very passionate that women have to advocate for themselves and become their own best doctors in a way by getting the education and taking charge by being informed and learning how to regulate their nervous system. And the fourth thing I want to point out about hormones is that every person is different when it comes to genetics. I mean, some women have a high risk for osteoporosis. Some women have a risk for Alzheimer's disease, some for heart disease. So each woman, before she goes on any hormones, will check her stress hormone, but we'll also do a risk assessment to see if she's going to get risks from the hormones or benefits. And if she's going to get benefits, then we'll proceed. Now, so when you look at the hormone connection, what we found, and this is 22 years of doing this, and I've been in practice for 30 years. So I was doing obstetrics mostly before my accident, and then I got into this women's health. We found that the women who had healthy, robust adrenal glands, when they hit perimenopause and menopause, they had an easier time. Those women didn't have the severe hot flashes. They weren't drenching the bed at night. But my women who had the most dramatic symptoms, when I checked their DHEA levels, when I checked their cortisol levels, I found that their adrenal glands had been really through the ringer. So multiple chronic stress throughout their life. And so when a woman hits menopause, she was designed that the ovaries would shut down and then the adrenals would take over for some time. Now, look at our demographic right now. Women around the turn of the century were living till they were 58 years old. So they hit menopause at 50, they died around 58 or 60, and that was fine. But now women are spending about 30 years in menopause, so they're postmenopausal, and we're filling up the nursing homes because we're outliving the guys. The guys produce testosterone until they die, by the way, so their bones, their brain is preserved a lot better. But they die a little bit earlier, a couple of years earlier than women. And when I visit nursing homes, what do I see? I see women who have broken bones, so they're debilitated, they're not moving. I see women who are demented. So if we want to protect our brain and protect our bones, you have to jump in at the right time with the hormone therapy so we can even the playing field with the men. And protecting the bone and the brain would be good long-term effects of hormones, hormone therapy, and short-term benefits, of course, sex, sleep, mood, and hair and skin. Those are what we call short-term benefits. But not all women should be on hormone therapy. You have to talk to your healthcare provider and see if you're a good candidate. If you are a good candidate, then take the hormones, but always be aware that if you want to stay on the lowest effective dose, you must also be aware of your cortisol and adrenaline and your stress pathways. So if your adrenal glands can take over production and you have healthy amounts of DHEA, that DHEA hormone can actually turn into estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So those women who look fabulous, they're 85 years old, they've never taken any hormones, they're just motoring, they probably had very good adrenal glands. They either had a great resilient mindset, and when they were exposed to stress, they didn't cave, or they took very good care of their bodies and had a great attitude about life. So it really depends on the accumulated stress on your adrenals when you hit menopause. What state are they in? And adrenal stress or fatigue itself can actually cause problems for your female hormones as well. So you can see that there's a lot of hormone connections, and it's easy to see hormone connections. Women who develop, for example, diabetes in pregnancy, we know something happens, that their insulin doesn't work properly while they're pregnant. And as soon as they deliver the baby, then their blood sugars go back to normal. So these are just examples of how these hormones actually communicate and talk to each other. So it's really important for us to learn to connect the dots, because the way our medical system is set up, it's very compartmentalized. And of course, I teach students at UBC Medical School, and we're starting to teach the younger doctors. But the ones who are in their 50s or 60s, these doctors may not be aware of crossover between the different departments. So it's important for you to be. I'm going to just leave you with some checklists for healthy hormones. The health of your adrenals affects your sex hormones too. So as I said, your DHA is produced by your adrenal gland, and that turns into testosterone, but DHA also improves your desire. The attitude that you have about life, do you react to stress or do you respond to stress? So react would be you jump right away into fight or flight, the fear response. You go to the worst case scenario. So someone cuts you off, and right away your adrenaline and cortisol come running out, and your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up. Those are called reactions. But some people have cultivated a mindset where they just take a deep breath and say, okay, I got this. Maybe the guy's in a hurry. He cut me off. He's having a bad day, but I'm okay. And they take a deep breath, and they have a deliberate, measured response. Now, what was the difference? The first guy who reacted made cortisol and adrenaline and revved up their motor, and now, their body feels that biological effect. But the person who responded to that stressor, they just took a deep breath, their DHA went up, their endorphins went up, their serotonin went up. So all the hormones that repair your body, that's why it's called rest and repair versus fight or flight. That's where you want to live. And it takes practice. I didn't get there until I was forced to. So it doesn't come easy, but once you get there, you realize how much better your health and your life is. So learning how to regulate your nervous system impacts not just your female hormones, improves your sex life. It's just better for overall health. And I also teach women that, it's not just one silver bullet for if you want better sex, better sleep, better this. It's not one magic pill. The first and most important thing is to have a healthy mindset and not be stressed, be in rest and repair. That's the most important, because stressed minds do not make good choices. Have you ever had emotional eating when you're stressed, bored eating, or stressed eating? So we can tell you, watch your diet, get enough sleep, make sure you exercise. But until you fixed your stressed mind, you're going to make bad choices in all those three departments. So the 4 pillars of health, as most doctors will tell you, exercise, go move, that's good for you. That's true. Sleep, quality and quantity, really good for you. That is true. Eat a really healthy diet. Make sure it's not processed. That is true. But where we fall flat, ladies, is the stress management piece. Most of us are living in fight or flight with the gas pedal on, and some of us, the gas pedal is just stuck. And I've seen those women, and they are not making good choices about exercise or sleep or nutrition. And of course, they don't have a good sex drive because of that. They're too tired. Should I go to sleep or should I have sex? They're functioning on very low levels. And so sex takes the back burner. So the take-home messages for all of you out there is really be aware that the hormones work in a symphony, and it's not just your ovaries doing their thing. Your ovaries, yes, produce the estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, but they are greatly impacted by your stress pathways from your brain. So if your nervous system is revved up all the time and you're producing stress with cortisol and adrenaline, that is impacting your ovaries, it's impacting your adrenals, it's impacting all your receptors and even your gut. And you're not passive. I want you to reclaim your health. I mean, I go to doctors, of course. I don't want you to think you don't need a doctor. You need to go to doctors for pap smears and breast exams and blood tests and diagnostics. But when it comes to managing stress, having a good sex life, and having better sleep, you know your mind the best. You know how your body reacts to your mind. So it behooves you to reclaim that part of it and be a part of your health solution and learn to regulate your stress pathways through the stress hormones. So I just took a little excerpt from the book, and there's a much deeper explanation, but here's some take-home points that you can learn, and you can take notes if you want. So I just made an acronym, and it's called Reframe. Reframe means take another look. Just look at your health a little differently and start taking charge, okay? So the reframe, the R is for reset. Reset your nervous system. Put it into rest and repair and get out of fight or flight. You only need fight or flight when you're in real danger, when there's somebody chasing you, okay? But most of the time, live in rest and repair. Put the brakes on. And one of the ways to do that is through controlled breathing. And if we have time, Shirley, at the end, I'll demonstrate that. Exercise, great for your heart, great for your brain, great for your sex life, and also great for your immune system. When you move all that lymph around, lymph is what's going to fight those viruses that you get exposed to. Food. Now, food includes gut health. 85% of your immune system is found in the gut, but your serotonin, your happy hormone, is also found in the gut. That's where it's manufactured. So you want to have really good food, and you want to eat mindfully. Rest is also very important. We talked about rest versus sleep, sleep versus sleep deprivation and insomnia. So get to know your sleep, and I'll show you at the end how to cultivate some good sleep patterns. Assess your dialogue. Who is doing the thinking in here? The thinker who's doing the thinking is in charge. That's the programmer. Your brain just plays the tapes over and over and over, but it's your job to assess yourself and say, oh, here I go again. I keep going to the worst case scenarios, or I have these automatic negative thoughts, but those thoughts are turning on your stress pathways and impacting your sex hormones. Mindset. Cultivate a mindset of resilience, that you are curious and open and ask the right questions. And it's a mindset of trust, not fear, that you've got this. We're all going to be okay. We're all going to get through this, and we're going to be okay. So having that faith in yourself and reclaiming that portion of healthcare to keep that power to yourself is really important. And the last E is about examine. I want you to know that when your symptoms are severe, I'm talking about prevention here, but when they're severe, you need to go and see a doctor. And for menopausal women, I have seen severe cases of vaginal atrophy, dryness in the vagina that is so severe that I just touch the speculum and they bleed. And you don't need to put up with that kind of pain. There are prescription safe estrogens. Even my breast cancer patients can have safe topical estrogen for the vagina. And Shirley has told you about lubricants that can be used safely. They're great for when there's pain with penetration. but to protect the overall health of the vagina, it's really important. If you want to have a good sex life, there should be no pain. So make sure you address that, okay? Because pain also turns on the stress pathways. So with that, I'm going to leave you with a link if you want to read more. If you felt that this was enough and you've got the information you need, that's wonderful. If you want to read a bit more about the stress pathways, the nervous system, and how to control it, you can order through these links. And at this point, I'm going to bring it back to me so that we can open up the floor and have some discussions.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, did you see me nodding through your entire presentation? I felt like you were speaking directly to me. I need all of these messages. So thank you so much, Dr. Pawa. We do have some questions. So 3 things. We want to go through Q&A. I'd like you to just quickly share with everyone your story. I don't know that we actually included the car accident story in your intro, and I think that that is a nice bridge to how you got to do this work. And then we want to do the breathing exercise too before we go.
Let's get going. So ladies, the reason I'm so passionate about this is because I was a very, very busy doctor, type A, go. I think my gas pedal was on all the time. I finished delivering a baby one night at the hospital, and I was driving home and I was literally hit by a truck. And I was pregnant at the time. I had 2 little kids at home and pregnant with my 3rd. And that epiphany I had was when I was wheeled back into the hospital. I just left the hospital, the same hospital, and I'm wheeled back in there as a patient. And I'm staring up at the ceiling. And this time, I'm the patient. So the physician became a patient. And that began 7 years of a very long chapter in my life. And it wasn't a very bright chapter because there was a lot of grief. It was chronic pain, multiple surgeries, drugs, more drugs. And if I stayed in that system, I would just be on antidepressants, painkillers, and sleeping pills, and more drugs. And luckily, it's just by a stroke of luck, I said, well, I can't do deliveries anymore. My shoulder is injured. I went to Harvard to learn how to give counseling to patients. So that way I'm not using my shoulder. What I didn't know is that I was going to go there and transform my own health. And so that was a very big transformative moment when I learned about the autonomic nervous system. And I said, how is it that this cardiologist who was at the cutting edge research taught me about this, but why is it that everyone is walking around, they don't even know they have an autonomic nervous system, and it holds the key. 75% of the symptoms that walk into a doctor's office can be attributed and traced back to a dysfunctional autonomic nervous system, too much cortisol and adrenaline. And I thought, wow, I cannot go back to general practice in good conscience and keep writing pills for everybody. And that's when I transformed the way I first healed myself and then helped to heal thousands of other women. And we opened the West Coast Women's Clinic. And that's why we called it Hormone Health, is because it wasn't just about estrogen and progesterone. We have to look at the stress pathways too. So that's my story in a nutshell. The TED Talk is a longer version of it.
Amazing. And we're going to share the link to your TED Talk as well as the link to your to how to buy your book on September 15th. And we'll do that in tomorrow's email with a replay of tonight's conversation. So let's get to some questions. Are you ready?
Sure.
The first one is, any suggestions of how to get better quality and quantity of sleep? During the pandemic, I have not been sleeping well most nights.
Great question. Okay. So if you had come to my office and said, this is what's going on, before I write a prescription for a sleeping pill or anything, I would ask you questions. So I'd want to know, do you have trouble falling asleep? Are you having trouble staying asleep? And then what's going through your head? So if it's fear of the pandemic, is it fear that you're going to get sick, your grandma's going to get sick, or your kids are going to get sick, because we have to analyze your fears. That's the root cause. And then we try and reframe your fears and say, well, it's called cognitive behavior therapy. What's another way to look at this? We cannot control what's outside of us. We can control how we respond to those information, that the fears that are on the news. So we teach you to reframe through cognitive behavior therapy that your fears, because when you go to sleep at night, your brain thinks it has to work through this threat. It thinks it has to go, it thinks it's national security and it's homeland security and it's on surveillance, so it's got a job to do. So we have to train your brain at night to decompress and say, you know what, I'm going to sleep. I'm not going to get anxious because I can't sleep. Everything's going to be okay. And all this information that's out there, I can respond. I'm not going to react to it. I mean, COVID is not going away, ladies. It's here for a long time. We have to learn to respond to it, improve our immune systems, work through trust, of course, avoid the exposure. But if you don't, you're not sleeping because your cortisol is turning on at night. Now, all of that is great, but if you cannot do that, you can take certain safe things like magnesium glycinate is a wonderful product that helps you to sleep. Cortisol manager is another way to keep your cortisol down. Those are adaptogenic herbs that help your nervous system to calm down. So if you have to take something natural, it's okay. But in the meantime, work on your breathing techniques that we're going to talk about in a minute. And also, here's a really good tip. SODA, soda. When you want to change your thoughts, because you have that ability to think about what you're thinking, I said that's called metacognition. Remember this formula, SODA, stop, observe yourself, and you say, oh, here I go again. I notice that I've got all these negative thoughts. They're fear-based. Stop and observe. That's the first two steps. Third step is detach from that old fear-based thought. And the fourth step is affirm a new thought. So you might have a thought, oh my God, Johnny's going to get sick when he goes to school tomorrow, and he's going to bring home COVID. So then you reframe that thought with a trust-based thought. You say, I've taught him how to wash his hands. Young kids have a very robust immune system. The school's taken all these precautions. And if little Johnny does get COVID, he's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. You have to learn to use your trust-based thinking to offset the fear, because that's your default option. That goes there automatically. But trust-based thinking, the rest and repair side of your brain, requires a conscious effort, where stress is subconscious. You don't have to think about it. Does that make sense?
Amazing, amazing. Okay, I'm going to add my own little question to that tag along. So you mentioned 6 to 8 hours of quality sleep. I'm on the 6. I'm on the end towards 6. And I wake up at 3:30 every morning. So what's happening?
So what's happening is, normally, as I said, your cortisol levels go down at night, and they should gradually build up and be peaking at around 7 in the morning with daylight, 6:30 or 7. So you're peaking at 3:30. Your brain thinks it's got to work through something. So what you might want to do is fix what we call your circadian rhythm. Our hormones are secreted in our body. They're pulsed out at different times because our body was developed with the sun. So when the sunlight goes down, that's when melatonin and growth hormone and all these hormones at night come out. And then we have day hormones as well. That's why it's important to do a 24-hour urine collection when we test hormones, so we can get the whole gamut. For you, I would try and do the relaxation techniques, the cognitive behavior therapy. I'll try and send you, Shirley, some information, and you can send it to your peeps. These
Sure.
are stress hygiene and stress compression and cognitive behavior therapy for sleep.
That would be amazing.
And chapter 7 in the book is all about sleep. And I consulted a sleep doctor, a psychiatrist who only studies sleep and the sleep wave patterns. That's a ding. And now that ding just made my cortisol go up. because I can't disable the phone from my computer, so I apologize.
No worries, no worries. Okay, so our first question was actually about how we measure cortisol. Can cortisol be measured with a blood test? I know you just mentioned the dried urine test. Can you explain?
Okay, so in traditional medicine, which is the model that I also use, we just knew about Addison's disease and Cushing's disease when it came to adrenal dysfunction. And so our lab references are set for Addison's or Cushing's. So if you don't have Cushing's, you don't have Addison's, the doctor's going to say, you're normal, you're fine. What we haven't measured are people who are really in adrenal fatigue or very, very hypoadrenic or hypercortisolism. They're producing too much cortisol, but they don't have Cushing's. So we found a lab in Tacoma and Minneapolis who were able to measure the cortisol levels for those women who are highly stressed or just burned out. And those are the testing facilities that we've been using. And you can do a dry spot urine, or we can submit the whole sample of the 24-hour collection of urine with the test tube and send that down to the States. That's the one that the Olympic athletes are using. So it's very reliable for hormones. Blood tests are not always reliable for hormones.
Yes. And most, correct me if I'm wrong, but most women who are talking to their family physician about testing cortisol are probably not going to get to that level that you just described.
No. And you know, in endocrinology here in
Yeah.
Vancouver and all the hospitals across the world, you can measure cortisol in the blood, but morning and evening cortisol, but usually the ranges are set for Cushing's or Addison's. They're not set for people who are just stressed.
Okay.
So you're going to miss all those.
Perfect. Okay. Now, carrying on the theme of hormone testing, and I'm sorry I don't have everyone's first name because it's Zoom, but this participant is curious about how often someone would have their hormone levels checked. So she had hormone testing done 5 years ago, and she's post-menopause for 4 years.
Okay, so not a lot has changed once you've reached menopause and we get a baseline. I don't check it again unless there was a problem with your estrogens or there was a problem with your testosterone or your stress hormones. I might check it again. Urine testing is not cheap yet. We haven't figured out a way to make it cheap. So I try to glean as much information as I can from that test. And I would do it once before you reach menopause and once after you reach menopause. And then if we're giving you hormone therapy and I want to know what's your body doing with the estrogen and progesterone, where's it going? Is it going in the right pathway? I might check after 4 or 5 years. So if you've been 5 years, you're having symptoms, you're not getting better, then it's worthwhile to get it checked. But if you're doing great, save your money.
Her chief concern or complaint is insomnia.
Okay, if it's insomnia, then you might want to do what's called a 4-point cortisol test. And it's a morning, it's a noon, it's an afternoon, and a night test. And that tells us what your cortisol is doing. And that would be a little bit more accurate. So that's cheaper than doing the whole gamut of hormones. Just stick to the cortisol, and that might be your best bet.
Amazing, amazing.
It sounds like you're probably making cortisol at night at 3 or 4 in the morning, and you might need things to bring that cortisol level down.
Okay, so we have a few members who are curious about DHEA, and this question is about whether or not you can increase DHEA naturally.
That's a great question. Okay, so yes is the answer. You can increase DHA naturally, and I've seen this happen. I had a woman who said, I don't want to take anything. She was a real purist. She didn't want to take any hormones, no medication, and her DHA was 56, very, very low.
Okay.
Normal levels are about 150 to 200 at menopause.
Okay.
And she started doing mindfulness-based stress reduction techniques. We offer a course, and it's a free course, and you just learn how to regulate your nervous system. And then we measured her DHA a year later, and she went up to 123 from 56.
Wow.
And that was through meditation, spending time in nature, changed her lifestyle, started reframing, being responsive, not reactive. So she really made a dramatic change. She was the CEO of a big company, left all that, and decide to work from home, doing what she loved, spending more time in nature, and all of those things improve your DHEA.
Amazing. That's a great
Yeah.
story. Thank you. I love your testimony or your case studies because I always learn from other women's journeys. Okay, so you may have alluded to this, but I'm going to ask these next couple of questions because our guests are using the word adrenal glands, adrenal deficiency. So how do you fix adrenal deficiency? Can this be tested? And you can just maybe speak to cortisol and adrenal and which words we should be using.
Yeah, so be careful how you word that with your GP, because adrenal deficiency to most medical doctors is Addison's disease. Okay, so that's what adrenal deficiency is. But since I've been doing this research, we just call it hypoadrenia. Some naturopaths call it adrenal fatigue, but it just means that your adrenal glands are exhausted. And normally you're supposed to put out 9 to 16 milligrams of cortisol per day, but your adrenal glands are probably putting out 6 or 8 milligrams, which we can measure. And then we know that they're not dead, they're not over, the game's not over, you don't have Addison's, but you just need things to improve the adrenal. And it means lifestyle changes, it means certain food changes, exercise, and of course the whole mindset shifting out of fight or flight, taking the foot off the gas and going into rest and repair. So it really means a paradigm shift. And we can actually see a change and their adrenal glands start producing. Some patients that are severe may need adrenal, what we call extracts or rebuilders. And we work with a compounding pharmacy to make some things that help their adrenals to work better too. But that, I don't want to go into specifics because each patient is different and their needs are different. So I'm trying to give you all generalized advice.
Absolutely. And overall, it's a great reminder. I think in your presentation, you used a phrase that I love, which was, it's the best life insurance. So paying attention to how we eat, move, sleep, and manage stress. I always have to slow down when I say those things because they're big buckets. But I mean, we're maybe currently speaking to women who are looking for relief or looking for a quote fix for the now, but could you maybe spend a minute speaking about how that is an investment in the long term?
Okay, so when I said earlier that 75 to 80% of the acute symptoms that walk into a doctor's office are due to a malfunctioning nervous system, too much adrenaline and cortisol. So when you think about muscle tension, heartburn, insomnia, skin problems, they're all sort of immediate problems, migraines. Those are all attributable to stress. But now, imagine if you live like that forever and ever, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. I have a friend who is a doctor of longevity, and there's a longevity, they study who ages well. They found that chronic disease such as diabetes, heart disease, COPD, cancer, arthritis, all these long-term chronic diseases, 70% of them are also due to stress. But what are we doing with them? We're throwing drugs at them because we end up treating the symptoms of stress. Stress shows up in our body as symptoms. And if we don't take care of it, eventually it wears down your immune system, you get inflammation, and then you get chronic diseases. And even with this COVID crisis, it's a great opportunity for you to go in and say, well, I can't control the vaccine. I can't hide from the virus forever. I'm going to protect myself and wash my hands and wear a mask. But if I do get exposed to the virus, the best case scenario is that if my immune system kicks in and makes the antibodies to fight that virus. And to improve your immune system, use that Reframe toolkit. It's a great way to repair the immune system because psychoneuroimmunology is an emerging field of medicine. It means your psychology affects your neurology, your nervous system, and that's connected to your immunology or your immune system. So there's a profound effect of your thoughts affecting your nervous system, and then impacting your immune system. So if you learn to use that Reframe toolkit, you're going to have better sex and sleep, of course, but you will also improve your immune system. And that's where you do have some control. So take charge of what you can control. You can control how much news you listen to. You can control how you breathe. You can control the soda, stop and observe. You can control the awareness and assessment of your inner dialogue. So focus your attention on those things is what I would advise.
That is a giant wow. That's the first time I've heard someone articulate it that way in the last, what has it been, 6 to 8 months. We need to share this word with everyone. You're amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to make sure that we get through all of our questions. It's 6:15 or 9:15 Eastern. If you want to stay with us for a few more minutes, we will get through to the end of the question queue. If you have to go, we will be sending you the replay tomorrow. So Carla wants to know if there are any clinics that we know of in Ontario where a person can get her cortisol tested or hormone testing. Carla, I believe you live in Georgian Bluffs, so I can recommend healthsquad.ca and Dr. Cara Denisio. And I don't know about you, Dr. Pawa, do you have anyone in Ontario that you want to refer to?
There are some clinics. What you want to look for are doctors who've got training in integrative medicine or functional medicine. They go to the root cause. So you have to have an MD, but then or an ND, then they go further training, and that's what I've done is functional medicine and hormonal medicine. So there are clinics in Ontario. I know there's a Dr. Flamer, I believe is her name, Flamer, and she's in Toronto. And she's doing it, and there are a few others, integrative physicians and functional medicine doctors, wherever you are. There's a website, the IFM, Institute of Functional Medicine, and you can go on their website and find doctors in your area who are certified functional medicine doctors.
Yeah, we can include that link too. So that's amazing. And one of the things that this pandemic has opened up for us is if you are, say, a resident of Ontario and you want to see an ND that is not geographically local, you can see them virtually, like we're meeting tonight. So that is amazing. I think it's opening up access for lots of women. Okay, Lisa has a question about anxiety. Her level of anxiety peaked in perimenopause way before the pandemic. It seemed like it's a link to my hormones, but I don't know what to focus on to improve it.
Mm-hmm. So, Lisa, I see a lot of mood disorders being diagnosed around menopause. And estrogen and progesterone are what we call neuromodulators. They modulate your neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. Now, those women who get anxiety and depression right at menopause, if I look at their history, those women usually have postpartum depression or they've had PMS that's been building up and building up. If I check their hormone levels, their estrogen and progesterone is usually lower than their cohorts, their peers who are at menopause. Like our ovaries shut down at menopause, but they still make a small level of estrogen and progesterone. And so if you got hit with anxiety suddenly at menopause, your estrogen progesterone are depleted, but I would also look at your stress pathways. And we might replete or replace your estrogen progesterone, and that might be enough. But if not, you really, do all the things that you can do to look at your cortisol pathways as well. And there are some women who just don't respond to all of these things, and a low dose antidepressant such as an SSRI has been studied, and that does very well, but you keep it at a low dose. You don't need the high 40 milligram doses, for example. You probably need 5 or 10, just enough to calm down the nervous system. But I only go to that if all the other natural things have failed.
Okay, that's great. We have some suggestions, so I'm sure everyone can see in the chat. There's guests who are recommending apps, which is amazing. So we can save that chat if anybody wants the links to those apps. Do you use an app, Bal?
I do. I love the Headspace app, and the Breathe and Calm app. I recommend those a lot to my patients, because when you do the breathe out, oh, we were going to do the breathing, so maybe it's a good time to do that.
Sure.
So, of course, technology, let's balance technology. I told you to get off technology, but sometimes technology can be good. So having some of those apps teaches you how to breathe. And I had to learn how to breathe. I didn't realize that after my accident with chronic pain, I was breathing very shallow. And when patients come in, I actually listen to their breath and watch them breathe. And if you're breathing and your diaphragm's sitting up here all the time, you're sending a message to your nervous system that I'm on alert. Make more adrenaline, make more cortisol. But when you bring your diaphragm all the way down and relax your muscles, you actually just sent a message to your nervous system that you're in rest and repair mode. So this is really important, the position of the diaphragm. So when you do these breathing techniques, take a moment just to see where your diaphragm is and take some nice deep breaths. So deep breathing in through the nose, inhale. So when you inhale, hold it. Hold it for 5 seconds. And then when you exhale, you're going to exhale through your mouth. Make the exhale longer than the inhale. That's the first step, BMW. So you'll remember this. Remember, there's an engine in there, there's a motor, and then think of a car, BMW, so breath, mind, and word. So first you get your breathing, relax all your muscles. The second is to calm your mind down. Our mind just goes. If I hook you all up to an EEG machine, it's same as a heart machine, but we measure the brain waves. Most women will be like this, crazy, crazy waves. But when I get them to deep breathe and put their mind into a calm mode, their brain waves become these nice, soft alpha waves. And that's when you start producing the good repair hormones. So when you breathe, that's the B. M is for mind. Make your mind calm, be in the moment, and forget about the past, forget about forecasting fear and COVID. Just say, in this moment, right now, I'm safe, I'm whole, everything is okay. So that's your M. The W is repetition of a word. So when you're doing your exhale, say a word, amen, om. You could use peace. So now put those 3 things together. Inhale, hold, exhale, and as you're exhaling, say the word silently and get your mind to focus on your breath and be in this moment. That's how you reset your nervous system. And when you do that over and over, you then learn to live in rest and repair. And you can do it 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening, and do a couple minutes around lunchtime. And that neutralizes your stress hormones that you produce throughout the day.
Wow. Okay, now I have to set a timer on my phone to remind me to do it. I can't wait. That's amazing. Thank you so much. I'm like so zenned out right now. I don't even know how to close this up. I will, first of all, if you asked a question in the chat about a referral to a health professional, I can help you with that tomorrow. Geographically, happy to do that. So we can connect tomorrow and do that. I would like to take this opportunity to remind you to check back with us on Monday, September 14th, for our next event with Dr. Jennifer Beaker, who is one of Canada's top dermatologists. And that's a free event. You can register for it at mybestmidlife.ca. And speaking of best midlife, Dr. Pawa, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insights tonight. I was madly taking notes, and then I realized I'm going to have the recording. I can't wait to re-listen to it because I just learned so much. You've given us lots of information, but I think even more importantly, to women who are holding up the world right now, some real practical tools that can change our life, improve our life starting tonight. So all of my gratitude to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Have a great night, everyone. Stay
And
safe.
don't forget, September 15th, Dr. Pawa's book comes out. It hits Chapters Indigo here in Canada or other bookstores around the world. I'm sure you can order it online. It's called The Mind Body Cure. And I hope all of you have an amazing night tonight. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good night. Thank you, Shirley. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.